the right to die is one of the most important rights in an ethical society, but in most countries, love and empathy and compassion and justice are frustrated by the law. Every year, many good people face an ethical dilemma between lawful suffering and unlawful compassion, and they face it at a time when they are at their most vulnerable and need the most support. Ultimately, this is an issue where the courts and the law have to catch up with reality. The courts are not in control of what terminally ill people will choose to do, because terminally ill people have their own ethical priorities and their own autonomy. Like blasphemy, assisted dying is a victimless crime. I first got involved with the Right to Die movement 8 years ago, when my late wife, Anne Holliday, was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. We loved each other very much, and we had lived together for 25 years. Anne was smart, sexy, funny and courageous. She combined her busy career with helping me with mine. She was loving and loyal to her family and friends, and she campaigned to build a peaceful, liberal, secular and caring Ireland. Anne and I campaigned together on many issues. We campaigned on the losing side when Ireland voted to retain a constitutional ban on divorce. And we campaigned on the winning side a decade later, when the Pope announced that it was morally allowed to discriminate against gay people. Anne and I arranged a picket of the Papal Nuncio's house in Dublin with placards that read "Equal rights for gays and celibates." We founded New Consensus, a peace group that challenged terrorism by the IRA and loyalist paramilitaries, and we promoted a peaceful, democratic Northern Ireland based on mutual respect, civil liberty and freely given allegiance to the state. Anne did a lot in her life and she didn't want to die, but neither did she fear death. She was grateful to have had enough notice of her death to be able to do many things that she wanted to do before she died. And she wanted to die painlessly and peacefully, rather than having to suffer unnecessarily before she died. She had decided that if she reached that stage, that she would take her own life. And I had agreed to help her to do this, even though we both knew that it was illegal in Ireland to do that. Once she had made that decision, and once we had put in place the mechanism to be able to carry it out, Anne's quality of life soared, and we were able to fully enjoy the time that she had left after that. Like most people who make this decision, Anne died naturally in the end. She was told that she had 6 months to live. She actually lived for 1.5 years, and we made the most of that precious time together. And this is one of the most important things that I think that opponents of the Right to Die movement do not understand. It's that the right to die is not merely about the act of dying. It is about the extra quality of life and peace of mind that you have while you are still alive, by knowing that you're in control of the end. While Anne was dying, we met Tom Curran, whose partner, Mary Fleming, did not want to live through the final stages of multiple sclerosis. She argued to the courts in Ireland that suicide was lawful in Ireland, but that she was discriminated against on the grounds of her disability, because she could not exercise her right to commit suicide without assistance. Mary took her case as far as the Irish Supreme Court, but the court ruled against her. It ruled that despite suicide being lawful, there was no constitutional right either to suicide or to arrange for the termination of your own life at a time of your choosing. However, the court did say that despite there being no constitutional right, that the Parliament could legislate for assisted dying if it included safeguards to ensure that the law was not abused. That was 4 years ago, and since then the Irish Parliament has refused to legislate for this right and has indeed publicly created the impression that the court is preventing them from doing that, even though that is not the case. 3 years ago, Mary died as she wanted to. She did not have to undergo the unnecessary suffering that she wanted to avoid. But not everybody is as lucky. Not everybody has the psychological resources or support networks that Mary and Anne had. Mary's partner Tom is a personal friend of mine, and he's one of the most inspirational campaigners for justice that I've had the privilege to know. He was a great source of comfort and empathy and help to Anne and I when Anne was dying. After Mary's court case, Tom and I and the civil rights activist Maureen de Burke decided to establish a lobby group in Ireland to seek legislative change on the issue of assisted dying. Right to Die Ireland promotes two principles. One, we support the right of terminally ill or seriously ill people who want to live as long as they can to get the best possible medical resources that are available for them to do this. Nobody should be forced to die earlier than they want to, and the law should have strong safeguards to protect this right. Secondly, we support the right of rational, terminally or seriously ill people who want to die peacefully at a time and way of their choosing to be supported in carrying out this wish. Nobody should be forced to undergo unnecessary suffering, particularly when it is a question of not of whether they will die, but just when and how they will die. Tom Curran is now the European spokesperson of Exit International, which supports other people facing this dilemma. One consequence of this is that the Irish police have recently questioned Tom about the nature of his partner Mary's death more than 3 years after Mary died. This is not deterring Tom from his principled campaign. Exit International's vision is that every adult of sound mind has the right to implement plans for the end of their life so that their death is reliable, peaceful, and at a time of their choosing. Exit is now developing an app to test the purity of euthanasia drugs that are purchased online. And this is a crucial issue, as the worst possible outcome for anybody wanting to die would be to make a failed attempt and to end up alive but brain damaged. This is indeed another argument for legalising assisted dying, as people would have access to reliable information as well as psychological counselling that may indeed result in them changing their mind or in doing what they initially intended to do. It's something that was found when suicide was legalised in Ireland, that people who otherwise would have had to commit suicide without talking to anybody, in some cases were able to talk to people and change their mind, and in other cases, if they did continue, were able to do so reliably. I'd like to conclude briefly just with one good news story. When my wife Anne died, she donated her body to medical research, and when they were finished on her and she was being buried, we discovered that the medical plot for the Dublin Medical Schools in the graveyard in Dublin had only one headstone for all the bodies buried there, and it was a religious headstone asking people to pray for everybody so that their souls would go to heaven. We told the Dublin Medical Schools that Anne would not have wanted to be buried under a religious headstone, and that they wouldn't dream of burying a religious person under a headstone that said there was no God. Now, thankfully, the Dublin Medical Councils agreed with this, and they have replaced the religious headstone with a neutral secular one. So now, in what I consider Anne's final campaign, if anybody does die and leave their body to medical research in Dublin, they can be buried in a way that their loved ones can remember them without having a religious headstone that would contravene our philosophical rights. Thank you very much.